On today's Live Open Daily, the company behind one of VR's most successful apps is laying off 30% of its staff. I'm your host, Live Open Mike, and I'm talking about VR Chat. This news broke yesterday. We're going to get into the letter that came from the CEO. And this continues a pretty disturbing trend that we've seen in and out of VR. Really, it's going through all of gaming. But for this VR focused podcast, we're going to focus on the VR end of it. There's a whole list of companies in VR who have gone through layoffs. I'll go through that list a little bit later in this podcast. But we're going to start by focusing on VR Chat. Getting into the full text of the email, this from Graham Gaylor, the CEO of VR Chat. Hi, everyone. Today, I have some very hard and sad news to share. We're reducing the size of our team by over 30% and saying goodbye to many talented team members in the process. This is the hardest change we've had to make at VR Chat, and Jesse and I take full responsibility for the decisions that brought us here. Our responsibility is to maintain and grow the space we've created in VR Chat, where so many people have found friends, family, and happiness, and most of all, to bring that opportunity to everyone. Although difficult, this decision enables us to uphold our responsibilities for many years to come. You all deserve to understand why we're here and how we came to this decision. Below, I'll provide some broader context and outline what you can expect next, where we are today. Over the last 10 years, we've built a product that millions of people love. We were one of the first popular apps on the Steam VR and Oculus Store, and as the VR market grew, we grew with it. When VR growth slowed in 2022 and VR Chat's growth slowed with it, we were faced with the challenge of needing continued growth despite a core market that needed longer to mature. Our solution this year was to build a product organization to help us identify, focus, and execute on what would make us continue to grow despite market conditions. The result is promising. We have strong new product leadership. We have a clear mission to bring the magic of immersive social connection to billions of people. We have a clear 2 and 5 year plan to get us to rocket ship levels of success. We're building strong management structure for our team and product. We're validating where we're spending our time for the most impact. For these reasons and more, I'm very optimistic on VR Chat's long-term success. We have a huge opportunity in front of us, but to seize it, we need to be fast-moving, nimble, and make smart and sometimes difficult decisions. The hard decision today is that our team is too large in its current form to support the health and growth of the business. What's driving this decision? In March, we ran an analysis to better understand how VR Chat will be able to achieve its goals over the next 5 years. We have 4 major learnings from this exercise. Number 1, we took too long to add management. Historically, we've been a flat organization, with most of the team being individual contributors or ICs for short. This appeared to work well as we continue to see strong product growth with the market into 2022 without a management layer. Then VR growth slowed and VR Chat's growth slowed, and we found ourselves with a team of talented ICs, all doing their best to help achieve the company's goals. It took us until mid-2023 to recognize that we needed a product and people management layer to help align all of our talented IC work towards our goals and what skill sets we needed to grow over time. Number 2, we overhired ICs. We saw incredible growth in 2021 and 2022, and in anticipation of continued growth, scaled our IC team significantly. The reality was different. Not only did we not maintain 2021 levels of growth, we shrank year over year. A scaled team with a smaller user base led to an oversized organization and burn rate relative to revenue and product scale. We hired tremendously talented people who worked on a lot of great ideas and projects, but without a management layer to align everyone towards the same goals, we did not set everyone up for success. Number 3, we need more time and runway to execute. With management in place, we now understand what we need for success over the next 5 years. We're in a good cash position, but to execute effectively on our 5-year strategy, we need an extended runway with line of sight to profitability. The current fundraising environment is tough and will likely struggle to fundraise without greatly improved metrics. To take control of our own destiny and not solely depend on market-driven outside investment, we're placing an emphasis on capital efficiency to ensure VR Chat thrives. Some different roles and expertise are needed for the next part of our journey. Over the past 10 years, we've built an incredible product with an incredible team, and we wouldn't be here without each and every one of you. The next 10 years are going to look different. As we focus on getting to scale, we need the right people in the right roles at each stage of the journey. This is painful, and at the same time, I do believe it's the right decision to make VR Chat as successful as we all believe it can be. Jesse and I are so deeply sorry for the impact this change will have on all of you. We're going to do what we can to ensure that each and every one of our departing team members are set up for success for whatever is next. How do we decide who is part of the reduction? As we modeled our 5-year plan balancing profitability with business growth, we arrived at the hard conclusion that we need to reduce the team by around 30%. We determined which critical skills, expertise, and roles matched our future business needs and based decisions on these criteria. These decisions are not a reflection of the quality of the team members who are leaving, but rather one of a changing business and market. How do we plan to take care of the team? We wouldn't be here today without all of you and your passion, dedication, and creativity. While nothing can make up for losing a job, we're going to do our best to treat departing team members as respectfully as possible and do our best to help transition them to what's next. Some details include: we will pay 12 weeks of severance for all departing team members and an additional 2 weeks for every year of tenure beyond 3 years, and an additional 3 weeks beyond 5 years. For international team members, we are paying the greater of our package or amounts required under local law. Healthcare, we will pay for up to 6 months of healthcare coverage for those who are eligible. Stock option vesting, we will waive the 1-year cliff for anyone who hasn't already passed the 1-year mark. Stock option post-termination exercise period, PTEP, will extend the amount of time departing team members have to exercise their options from 90 days to 1 year and longer for those with significant tenure. Career support, will offer a career support service and do our best to connect departing team members with other companies. VRChat specific support. We know that VRChat is more than just a company to many of you and hope that even post-separation, you maintain your love and passion for the product and community we've built together. For those interested, we'll support departing team members with a few VRChat specific perks. Lifetime VRChat Plus. Departing members will get a lifetime subscription to VRChat Plus. VRChat Alumni Badge, an in-VRChat badge that signifies the individual is a member of the VRChat alumni group once our badging system is available. Higher Creator Economy Revenue Share. For departing team members who want to start a business using the VRChat Creator Economy, we will reduce VRChat's transaction fee for any purchases made from your store. Most importantly, even though this is not the separation we would have wanted or imagined, we want everyone who is leaving to know we care about you as former colleagues and appreciate everything you've done for VRChat. What to expect next? Immediately following this announcement, everyone will receive an email from HR to your personal email and your company email confirming whether or not your role has been impacted. For those impacted, you'll receive an additional email to your personal email with the details of your severance package and instructions to attend a meeting to discuss the details of your departure. For those of you staying, it's going to be a little bit bumpy while we navigate a lot of change all at once. Our focus today is supporting departing team members and setting them up for success. We ask for your support and patience and to help us do right by our users and departing team members throughout this process. Moving forward, we are where we are today, but we can learn from this to reduce the chance of needing a reduction again in the future. Number 1, management. We now understand the importance of management in supporting a large team and will ensure we appropriately balance management and ICs on the team. I expect to leverage the expertise of our new management team to bring best practices to VRChat. Number 2, overhiring. Moving forward, every single new hire will be scrutinized through a variety of lenses. Is the role critical to our goals? Is there a business need? Are they the absolute best person for the role? Can someone internally fill the role? Can we contract out the role? We'll move back to our early team growth philosophy of staying lean and scrappy instead of growing for growth's sake. When we see our product growth take off again, we'll reinvest in our team more efficiently and mindfully. Number 3, runway. For most of our history, we've only had 1 to 2 years of runway. The strategy was that we could always easily raise additional capital. While the capital markets will surely get better over time, our capital strategy will shift towards taking control of our own destiny and being more efficient with our capital. We started pushing on capital efficiency by growing on revenue growth and lower infrastructure costs for our H2 goals. With our smaller team and our H2 goals, we have a line of sight to profitability and a clear path to an extremely strong business and platform. We'll regularly share financial projections with the team to empower high-quality decisions with full context. Number 4, change your roles and expertise. As our company grows and changes, so do its needs from its team. We plan to support our team with more people-focused managers and are actively investing in career growth and trajectory tools to help our team understand how they need to grow and how to do so, what's expected of them, and what great looks like. We'll also hire with the future in mind and work to bring in new expertise as needed. Number 5, focus without fear. One of our goals for this reduction is to only do it once so we can focus on our mission without the fear of future reductions hanging over our heads. It's impossible to know what the future holds, but we've chosen to reduce our team size enough today that we won't have to do this again for the foreseeable future. While today is painful as we say goodbye to our talented friends and colleagues, we are setting up VRChat for long-term success. We have our work cut out for us, and now we have the foundation and time to execute towards our goals. Our mission remains the same and it bears repeating: to enrich the world through immersive social connection and bring that magic to billions of people. Our responsibility is to maintain and grow the space we've created VRChat, where so many people have found friends, family, and happiness, and to bring that opportunity to everyone. To those leaving VRChat, thank you again for all the love, dedication, and time you put into helping us build VRChat. We wish you all the best on what's next, and we'll do our best to support you on your journey there. With love and sadness, Graham and Jesse. So reactions been pouring in over social media over this email and this news. There were a few people from VR Chat who have announced that they're part of the layoffs. I'll put a couple of these up on screen right now. There's someone here with the screen named Weasel VR. I was a part of the layoffs today. I love my time there, and I can't be thankful enough for all the amazing people I got to work with our VRC. Hopefully I'll have brighter news soon. Got to look ahead and continue to build. And then one for Trisco L. DeHaven. Today I experienced the second termination of a role in less than 6 months. I'm part of those impacted by the recent unexpected layoffs at VR Chat. This notice feels especially hollow for me, as VR Chat absolutely needs user experience or UX research support, and I was the only researcher on staff. And then there are comments for all these on X, and I've seen a bunch of stuff on subreddits as well. Unfortunately, this feels like more pandemic fallout. They were talking about their explosive growth in 2020. This is right around the time the pandemic hit, and then when they said everything slowed in 2022, and when he talks here in the email about the market slowing in 2022, that's when the pandemic, I'm not going to say ended, but that's when the restrictions lifted and people were allowed to go to their favorite restaurants, take vacations and things like that again. Basically when the world really opened back up fully was in 2022, and people were spending less time in VR as a whole. Meta themselves saw an explosive growth of the sales of the Quest 2 during the pandemic. That's actually when I bought mine. And then again, as people got back out in the world, there were less people in VR. I don't want to boil it down to just the pandemic because the email goes into a lot of details. For instance, I didn't know that VR Chat did not have a management structure until recently, which is kind of crazy for an app with that many users, with that kind of user base. You will want enough infrastructure to keep that basically under control and keep people safe and keep the revenue flowing in. But then the follow-up question becomes, how do we get here? VR Chat is a free app. It's used by millions of people, but it's still something you can download for free. So how do companies like that make money? They talked about investments at one point. There's a great write-up on a blog called New World News. It's really just a summary of a X feed from an X user called Kyle McCulis. Their name is QDot. I'm going to read through this. There's a lot of like financial terms and investment terms, but hopefully you get the spirit of what this user is trying to say without getting too lost in the weeds of terminology here. VR Chat is a venture-funded company currently living off of its Series D round, which it got in 2021 off the back of the Meta Horizons hype. Ideally, you want to IPO, exit by Series C. Anything after that is like, well, maybe this time for investors, but you're diluting into oblivion at this point. At this point in the explanation, VR Chat basically has $95.2 million in funds as of 2021. It's now 2024. The 80 million Series D in 2021 came because the industry was absolutely shitting itself for virtual worlds thanks to the Meta Horizon announcement plus the COVID-19 lockdown. VR Chat got $80 million, but they weren't alone. Check out the absolutely wacky shit from sort of competitor Rec Room. Anyway, VR Chat. So they got 95.2 million in 2021 and they started scaling staff. I do not have direct numbers, but going off some hand-wavy and vague estimates from LinkedIn analysis, they went from maybe 15 to 30 headcount in 2021 to somewhere around 140 to 160 before today. VR Chat staff is international, and I'm used to San Francisco Bay Area pay rates, so best I can give is the vaguest estimates on payroll burn. But with that 2024 estimated headcount, it'll probably be in low millions per month. That is just payroll burn, not accounting for all the other costs of business, including online services, legal, etc, etc, etc. You usually just assume payroll is by far and away the largest burn in the company though. But QDot, does the VR Chat make money? They're not just completely burning, right? Fantastic question, it does. So the 95.2 million is being bolstered by some sort of revenue, but how much? Well, we don't know. What we do know today is that it's not enough to match payroll burn. So what are VR Chat's current monetization vectors? Here's an incomplete list off the top of my head. Event fees for things like Virality, that's a furry event for those who don't know, that just happened. Creator Marketplace income, and VR Chat Plus membership fees. Those first two are non-occurring revenue. Events like VCAT and Virality don't happen monthly, they're like a once-a-year deal. Creator Marketplace could be recurring at some point, but is still getting off the ground and isn't even publicly available yet, I think. That leaves VR Chat Plus memberships. At $9 a month, you're going to need 100,000 plus monthly subscribers to start even making a dent in that payroll burn. I have no clue what sub numbers are, so I can't speak to the impact this is having. From the Gaylor email, sounds like the new leadership brought in around the founders has given a very conservative outlook on recurring revenue growth, meaning that 95.2 million must be stretched. That's why we call it runway. If your company goes off the end of it, you crash and burn. But why the payroll gets so large, why would funders let that happen? The CEO's email covers this. They were inexperienced and overconfident. Admission does not excuse the f up, and I absolutely hold them accountable, but you also rarely hear leadership anywhere say that. But why don't they get more funding? It's 2024, funding is VC is 100% vibes based. The vibes suck right now that we're out of the ZRP salad days, and virtual worlds are a very dead fad. Yes, I know you like being an animal person in VR, but that doesn't mean cash. To summarize, bad business decisions made by founders, choice lengthen the company's lifetime by headcount reduction, or stay the course and possibly crash the company. Neither is great. The first choice was taken. ICs or software engineers had nothing to do with this, and F you if you say otherwise. Part of the reason you join these stupid startups is the ability to maybe own part of it when it goes to the damn moon. I realize many see VR chat as a platform and not as an ongoing concern. For those laid off invested, they may have a piece of the pie, albeit far less than the founders and investors. Don't play the shareholders game if you don't understand where the shares might be. Again, this is from a user named Q. on Twitter. This is part of an emerging trend in gaming. We've seen massive studios, Xbox, Sony, 505 Games, Naughty Dog, a lot of big companies laying people off. And VR has not been immune to that. Even though some of these companies are smaller, we've seen entire companies shut down. Just to go through a quick list here, there's Wemo Games, that's the developers of Micro Machines and Battle Bows. They shut down a few weeks after Micro Machines launched and unfortunately flopped. The rights to their games transferred to, I want to say it was Beyond Frames, I might have that wrong, but I'm pretty sure they transferred it to, I know for a fact they transferred the rights to Micro Machines and Battle Bows to another company that was still going to be operating to continue development of those games. And then there's Full Contact Entertainment. They're the makers behind Firewall 0 Hour, Solaris Off-World Combat, and most recently Firewall Ultra for the PlayStation VR 2. They shut down just a few months after Firewall Ultra launched on PSVR 2 and apparently did not have the capital raised to make that work. After almost 8 years of working with the most amazing team I've ever had the pleasure of being a part of, I'm sad to announce we will be closing our company First Contact Entertainment by the end of the year. The lack of support for VR within the industry has eventually taken its toll. As a AAA VR game developer, we are just not able to justify the expense needed going forward. We are a team of fearless innovators willing to push new technologies to its limits. I'm extremely proud of the team and grateful to our investors, our partners, and of course our community of dedicated and passionate players. It's been a wild ride. Thank you. There was also Secret Location. They're the makers of Nerf Ultimate Championship. That game came out in the fall of 2022, and just about a year later, Secret Location announced that they were closing entirely. This because their parent company were liquidating their company along with other smaller independent studios. So that game is gone. You can no longer buy Nerf Ultimate Championship. Over on the Meta side of things, Meta went through a layoff of something like 11,000 people at one point. And for those who don't know, Meta owns 9 different virtual reality studios. 2 of those were Ready at Dawn, the makers of Lone Echo 2, and Echo VR. Echo VR was recently shut down entirely. That company went through a 30% reduction. And Downpour Interactive, who made Onward, went through a massive layoff, including the CEO of that company. Last year, Digital Load, the makers of Espire and Espire 2, announced that they were going through a staff reduction. This is a note from them in May. It has been the toughest week for this company since it all began in 2017. We have unfortunately had to lay off a number of our very talented team who have contributed so much to the Espire game series, to other titles we've been developing, and who have helped grow the awesome community of fans that have supported us and our games. We're calling out to the dev community. If you have any leads, opportunities, please DM us. We love to connect you with some of the most talented people in XR and game dev. Archiac, who most recently put out Journey to Foundation, they also did Freediver Triton Down and Doom 3 for PlayStation VR 1, announced in January that they were doing layoffs. Quote, "We are deeply saddened to share that we have had to say goodbye to a number of talented colleagues this week. It was not a decision we took lightly, and we are working with these individuals to offset this difficult transition as much as possible. If you're currently hiring for any of these file disciplines, please reach out to us," and there's a list of specific people or specific departments that were having layoffs to try to get these people new jobs. Firesprite, who developed Horizon Call of the Mountain, had a bunch of layoffs from their parent company Sony. Unity, which is the engine used by a vast majority of VR developers, laid off 1,800 people recently. People Can Fly, that's the company behind Bulletstorm VR and the port of Green Hell VR, went through layoffs last year. Hidden Path Entertainment, they made Raccoon Lagoon, actually went through a series of layoffs. They were working with Wizards of the Coast. If you don't know what that company is, they're the people behind D&D, Dungeons and Dragons. A few years ago, Wizards of the Coast canceled a bunch of projects, D&D related projects and games that they were having developed by other studios. That happened in 2021. Hidden Path went through a round of layoffs after that, and then recently in early 2024, after they failed to secure some funding, very similar to what VR Chat is going through, where the funding wells have kind of dried up for a lot of these companies. Supermassive Games, who made Until Dawn, Rush of Blood, one of the most popular PlayStation VR 1 games, and most recently made Switchback VR for PlayStation VR 2, went through a round of layoffs in the middle of last year. And Smilegate Entertainment, the makers of Crossfire Sierra Squad, closed an entire studio in Barcelona that wasn't tied to VR but that company is also going through reductions. It's a very scary trend, especially when you consider that all that list that I just read off dates back to just the beginning of 2023. That's a lot of companies either closing their doors entirely or just going through massive staff reductions. There's only so many places the developers are going to be able to find work, especially now with all these companies doing layoffs, and you've seen like the scaling back of the VR market, as multiple companies have talked about. I think you're going to, and you're likely already seeing, we're just not hearing about it because people don't really announce when they have new jobs, but you might see a lot of these really talented developers leaving VR entirely. There's a really interesting note from 505 Games. This is not a VR company, but they recently went through some layoffs, and their company put out a statement that I found interesting here because it kind of pertains to what I think might be emerging in VR too. Hopefully I'm wrong about this, but the video game market has evolved since the pandemic to be more selective in terms of new games, with consumers increasingly reverting to well-established intellectual properties and playing these same games for longer periods. Digital Bros, that's a parent company of 505 Games, Digital Bros' strategy has to adapt to this new and evolving competitive scenario and will focus its efforts moving forward on the release of sequels and new versions of previously successful and established games with a limited number of newer, larger budget productions. They're focusing on established IPs, established franchises, as opposed to growing new IPs. In VR, we don't really have a lot of that luxury. There are multiple franchises in VR. I should probably do a podcast on that at some point. We've seen a lot of sequels over the course of the last 2 years, but a lot of VR is about new emerging IPs and companies trying to start those franchises that can live on, like your Marios of the world, your Zeldas, your Resident Evils, countless ones, Final Fantasy, so on and so forth, that are going to endure across decades. VR doesn't really have those yet because we're still in the nascent stages of that. So anytime you pick up a new game, you're most likely picking up a new game, a new world, a new experience. And whether or not that connects with you as a gamer is a bit of a coin toss. Couple that with the very obvious reality that people are just spending less time in VR, and I don't mean like the hardcore enthusiasts like me. I spend more time than ever. I'm talking about casuals who maybe picked up a VR headset on a whim when they were stuck at home with nothing to do. A lot of those headsets are now collecting dust, and you're hearing the same about like the PSVR 2 community because people are saying there's not enough games to play or there's not enough new exclusive games to play. People are just, headsets are collecting dust, their user numbers are down, and these companies can't really survive on that. We talked about this in the Max Mustard episode. We talked about this previously with X-Real Games, the makers of Zero Caliber 2. We also talked about this in regards to Hellsweeper when they were talking about putting eye-track dynamic foveated rendering. We talked about that in the previous podcast, about developers having to make decisions based on specific revenue growth, as opposed to maybe not the best decision creatively for a game because they have to be able to keep the lights on and keep paying their employees. Otherwise, you end up with situations where companies like VRChat have to make these really hard, tough, difficult decisions. So you couple a shrinking user base with something I talked about on the Max Mustard episode about things like the discount culture in VR and people not willing to spend as much money as they were just a few years ago. You end up in situations like this where companies are having to make really tough, awful decisions, and there's a lot of people that end up out of work. And of course, this goes without saying, but my thoughts and prayers to all those people who are being affected by all these layoffs I just went over the last year and a half. Hopefully you all are able to land on your feet and find new work. That's gonna be a wrap for this episode. Kind of a sobering one to end the week on, but I wanted to make sure that I did an episode and address this directly and put this news out there because it's really easy to just ignore this stuff and say, I don't really care about this, I'm just gonna go play my games. But the reality is VR, just like anything else, is a business, and there's a dark and ugly side to it that I don't think really gets the attention it deserves. So I'm saying all this to say that maybe take a look at your wish list this weekend, and if there's a game that you were kind of thinking about picking up but you maybe were waiting on the sale or something, just go ahead and grab it this weekend because you don't know the impact that you have with the choice of your dollar, and frankly you may be saving someone's job at this point. I hate to say it like that, but it's just the reality. That's a wrap for this episode. That's a wrap for the second week of Live Open Daily. Thank you so much for checking it out. If you want more of my content, check me out on Twitch. I stream VR there every Tuesday and Thursday night. You can also find me on YouTube, Spotify, and X. All those are at Live Open Mic. I'll talk to you next week.